Story 1. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was looking to earn some quick cash. I'm a college student and was short on money at the time because I would be going back home when the semester ended. I felt as though I couldn't get a traditional job at a store or something like that, because I would only end up quitting after like a month. I also wanted more flexible hours. I went on Craigslist and found a section where you could do jobs for people like help them move or do yard work, things like that. I saw an ad that had very recently been placed for someone asking for someone to clean their gutters. They said they were paying $100 for someone to clean their gutters. The ad said the job would only take a couple of hours and ladders would be provided. I thought this seemed like some quick and easy money. I was in pretty good shape and had cleaned gutters in the past, so I reached out and heard back a short time later. I had gotten the job and was told I could work it the next day. The man who had the ad told me his name was Rick, and he would pay me $50 when I got there and another $50 when I was done. He gave me the address, and the next day I went out to the location. I wasn't really familiar with the area at all, as I only went to that town for college and never really explored it much. It was an older neighborhood that seemed sort of out in the country. House itself looked very old and not in the best of shape. I saw the man was already outside when I got there, and I got out and met him. He was Rick, and he told me he lived there alone with his cat. He was an older guy and seemed really nice. He then basically told me what to do and showed me a ladder that was already out. He paid me the $50, and I took the ladder and began working. The house had 2 stories above ground, and the gutters were very dirty. It looked like they hadn't been cleaned in many years. It was a sort of satisfying job to see them get cleaned. I was in the back of the house working at the top of the ladder. I noticed something from inside the house. There was a window on the 2nd floor with a really creepy looking man just staring at me and smiling. It looked like he was insane or something. And I remembered how Rick said he lived alone. This creeps me out a little bit, but I kept on working. The man stayed there for at least another minute, and I could feel him staring at me until finally he disappeared. I moved on to the side of the house and suddenly saw a police car pull out front. I didn't really think too much of it until I saw an officer get out and walk over to me. When I saw him approaching, I got off the ladder and met him. He asked me what I was doing. I told him how I was cleaning the gutters for the man who lived here. The officer told me that nobody had lived in this house for well over a year, and a neighbor called the police on me when they saw me on a ladder in the back of the house. I then explained to the officer the Craigslist ad and showed it to him, as well as the text between me and Rick. After seeing this, the officer believed me, and I told him about the man inside the house. He knocked on the door several times but got no answer. Rick was also nowhere to be found in a car that had previously been in the driveway. He was gone. I tried to call Rick, but the number he had blocked me. The police officer told me I was in no trouble and he'd just go home, and they would take care of the rest. I went home and never heard anything more about it. To this day, I wonder what exactly was going on there. Story 2. Last summer, I was looking for a car on Craigslist. I had been driving a very old car for the past 2 years, and it was starting to have problems. So I took it to a mechanic and found it needed a lot of repairs, at which point it was no longer worth it. Luckily, I had some savings and I put the car up for sale. I bought cars on Craigslist all the time. I was able to buy a used car from another person and get a very good deal. I was looking for another used car, obviously newer and more reliable than my old one. After searching for a few days and borrowing my parents' old car, I found one that was really good and was a good deal. It was a 2010 Subaru Forester for sale at a very reasonable price. I knew this car would sell very quickly and saw that it was a new listing, so I immediately responded to it. I contacted the seller. I knew a lot of people would be in the same boat and would want to see the car as soon as possible. I wanted to see the car as soon as possible. After a while, the salesman contacted me and said he could show me the car tonight after work. He said he would meet me in the supermarket parking lot near his house. Around 8 p.m., the man said he would be at that location in an hour. I drove to the address he sent me and arrived within minutes. It was a pretty big supermarket parking lot, but the store was closed. The parking lot was completely empty, except for me. I texted the salesman and let him know I was coming. He replied that he would be there within 5 minutes. After a while, I saw a car pull into the parking lot, but it wasn't a Subaru Forester. Instead, it looked like a plain white car. I thought it must have been someone else. However, the car was parked in the spot next to mine. Then I saw a young-looking man, get out of the car. He approached my car. I opened the door and got out. The man held out his hand to me and introduced himself as Al. I introduced myself to him. He then asked if I wanted to see the car. He looked at a white Ford Fusion type car that looked nothing like the green Subaru Forester I was about to see. I told the man I thought he was selling a Subaru Forester. The man looked at me for a few seconds, then started laughing and looking nervous. He then apologized and told me that it was a different car he was selling and he had just mixed up his reservations. Then he pulled out his cell phone and started looking through it. Out of the corner of my eye, in the back seat of his car, I saw someone's head slowly rise. I could only see the top half of his head, his eyes looking up at me, and then he quickly lowered his head. It was strange, like someone was hiding behind my back. I could only see the top half of his head. He looked like a grown man. I looked at the cell phone. I asked him who was in the car. He said, "No one, I'm here alone." I said it looked like someone was in the back seat of his car. Then he said he saw that I was responding to an ad for a Subaru Forester, not a Ford Fusion. He then apologized for the confusion. I asked him if he was a dealer, to which he said no. Now he just sells a couple of cars. I was feeling strange at this time, and being in a quiet parking lot at night was not conducive, and he asked me if I was interested. I asked him if he was interested. He started trying to sell me cars and said he would give me a great deal and that I could take a test drive. But that wasn't what I was looking for, so I told him no thanks. Then I told him again that I was sure I saw someone in the back seat. Then I walked over to his car and went inside. I saw him look in the back seat, but he rolled down the passenger window and told me, "I don't see anybody," and he drove away without saying anything else. Then I got back in the car and drove home. When I got home, I couldn't understand how strange this situation was. It seemed very suspicious to me, as if he was hiding something, but I didn't know what was going on. When I went back to the Craigslist ad again, he was gone. The next day, I decided to report the whole story on Craigslist. To this day, I don't know who the person in the back of the car was or if it was set up to attack me. I don't know, but I'm afraid the man seemed to have several lists, and if he was planning to rob me or something, I think he was going to do it to more than one person.